You're watching Experience Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Sketch Up with Mog and Mel. If you don't know, this is Mog.
Hello.
This is Mel. Okay. So we are a working couple in the industry. We do a lot of cons. Mog is mainly the artist. She provides all that. I do everything else, which means I do a lot of cooking, cleaning, and washing windows.
Washing windows?
Yeah, well, sometimes I do. Anyway, so we're here starting up this new show, joining forces with The Experience, and we're hoping that you guys enjoy the show. The basic format is that we're going to have a guest on here that we're going to talk about their projects, see if that can get you interested in what they have. And I'm going to try to make this to go a little bit more in depth than what you normally see on other shows. So that way you can get to the meat of this and try to understand like what they're trying to do with their story and see if that'll interest you. And we have our first guest today, actually a good friend of ours. I haven't really known him too long, but somehow he keeps following us around. This is Tony Moy. He's out of Chicago. And I'd like to welcome him to the show. Hey, Tony.
Hello,
What's up? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, you're coming in fine.
All right, cool.
So if you've had a chance to read the bio that I posted up on the SketchUp ad, you'll see that Tony is an excellent artist. He does a lot of things. He's been traveling around the world, which I hope to do someday. We've only traveled around the United States, so we'd like to catch up to Tony's level. So tell us, Tony, what kind of, basically, where have you been to lately?
Well, I've actually had a nice little break in the last 2 months, and so this is, but 2022 had me going to 23 different shows across the world, including the first international show of 2022 was in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates, which was an amazing show. So many great memories and such a good crew of artists that were out there. And then my art had me traveling to Milan to film my first watercolor course with Domestica. They flew me out there to film with their Italian director crew that they have, which is, if you're not inspired to teach a watercolor course in Milan, like something's wrong with you. And then it was South Africa and then London. Both were amazing experiences.
Incredible.
So, yeah.
Now, when you went to, is it Abu Dhabi, you said?
Yeah. Abu Dhabi.
How were the people over there? I mean, did you see a lot of American comic books there, or do they have their own comics, their own like comics that they're putting out themselves and their own artists? What was that like over there?
There was, I did get a chance to walk around the artist alley. We were sort of in the international artists were kind of, a majority of them were in sort of a block in the main area. But I did take some time to walk through to the international artist alley that they had there. And obviously the artists that are out there are doing their own spin on things, or some of them are just like here. They're doing, fan art and things that interest them. But there's also some sort of cultural or ethnic takes on stories and comics. Like they're everywhere, right? It's just a medium. So I did see some of that stuff, which was very, 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 very cool.
Now, did the art styles vary, or were they following more on the like manga anime, or was it more on the European, or was it following more of the like the American Western style?
Um, I think now that the advent of anime and manga has been like so pervasive around the world.
Yeah.
And in a lot of these other countries, like the first, like when I was in South Africa and I was talking to some of the local artists, they were just like, yeah, sort of it was really hard to get American comics, but Asian manga and anime and things like that were a little bit easier to kind of get into the country and things like that, or it was to find online and things like that. So those inspirations, I think the Asian manga inspirations are something that I think is
right, and that's something that's been talked about in the industry is American comics. If not, some people may not realize it, but our market is down, and their market is kind of like dominating us right now. So hopefully things come turn around. And I've seen that. I've been in this industry for so long, and I've seen comics, fall and come back. And so hopefully we can do that again in the industry. It's a totally different ball now, though, because of we've got creators coming on doing their own funding on campaigns like Kickstarter and Indiegogo. So it'll be interesting to see like where all this lands and how this market survives, or even if it will survive. That's one of the questions. But that's like a whole nother big ball of wax to talk about. What are some of the projects that you're working on now personally?
Oh, well, like the biggest project I have going on is a sort of passion project when I can make the time in between the traveling and stuff like that. But it's a story about the Japanese Americans, a little bit of history that is forgotten about the Japanese Americans who actually fought in World War II, and to become the most decorated regiment in U.S. history, all while many of them had their families in the internment camps. Right. And when I first learned of it, I didn't believe it. Right. When I first caught that little bit of history, I was like, what? The most decorated group of soldiers in US history has a face that is similar to mine? Like that's not like before this, if I'm imagining, if I tell most people out there, like, hey, imagine what the most decorated group of soldiers looks like in the U.S. history, and we fought in so many wars, right? So there's a lot to kind of like think of, and I just never would have thought it would have an Asian face, right? And so that is what sort of shocked me about it, and after a few months of research and just trying to learn more about it, I was just like, there's a story here, and I just felt it for the first time in a long time, just like felt the urge to be a part of that story and wanting to tell it.
Now that was about the Nisei, and the Nisei were the second generation Japanese that were here in the United States.
Yes,
and these were they were born and raised here, so they didn't really know their Japanese country, even though they were raised and taught their culture by their parents and the friends and family that they had around them.
Right.
Very interesting group. What was how are you putting this out?
So the typical process, right, is you hide yourself in a hole and you stay in your studio for months and months, and then you finish them, and maybe you have a publisher to kind of do it. Otherwise, you have to finish the entire project, and then finally you dump it out in front of everyone and go, here, read it. So I'm taking a little bit of a different approach. I'm putting it out there for free. It's starting off as I'm doing the artwork, I'm putting it out there on Webtoons and Tapas and things like that. because I think on one hand, I think it's a story that just needs to be told. I would want it to be out there regardless. And two, it makes it so much easier for people. It makes it that much easier to be accessible, I think, to people to get that story. I don't have to convince you to buy anything. I just got to convince you to read it. And I figure in this day and age, if I can get on your phone, if I can get on your tablet, if I can get on your browser, if I can get on your bookmark, then I've won that battle. Whatever I need to do later on to, like, make ends meet, so to speak, then that'll be much easier. Whether that's through a publisher, whether that's through Kickstarter, whether that's through, some other mechanism, who knows?
Okay.
But yeah, just putting it out there, doing the work, and trying to rely on this free digital economy, right? Everyone expects everything to get out there for free, and so put it out there for free and beg for money.
There you go. Okay, yeah, I don't know if you have to beg that much for, because the 442nd, even though a lot of people may not know the story of the 442nd, there are still some people that do remember it, and it's a great story. There have been several movies on it, and some great talks about it, and it's been covered in biographies and other books telling the account of the 442nd RCT. But I don't think there has been anything out there yet that has really told the story the way it deserves to be told, because there are so many. When you look at this unit and see what they have accomplished and see what they had to go through, to me, it feels like they need their own series, kind of like Band of Brothers. Right?
Yeah.
Their exploits, their achievements, the way how they went through the Nazi line, and the many battles they had to fight, including saving the lost battalion.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Okay. And even though they've tried, there was a girl from Hawaii, I forget what her name is, Sarah something. She just did another movie on the 442nd.
Yeah.
And
it was more local to Hawaii, I think it took place.
Yeah, it was local to Hawaii because there was so many people from Hawaii. When they initially announced the 442nd to be formed, there was something like 1,500 Hawaii people that got into it, and only 800 from the United States, from the mainland, what they call the mainland. Right.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason why there was like a big difference is that the Japanese on the mainland were in internment camps. The Japanese in Hawaii were not.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because the businessmen in Hawaii did not want that to happen, because to do so would collapse their economy. Right? The Japanese were not just in many businesses that were important to the Hawaii economy, but they were also in many political positions as well, right? And the big companies there, like were mainly your sugarcane, like Dole, Del Monte, and for pineapple, right? Which employed mainly Japanese, right? So if you took all those people and put them in internment camps, they would be losing business, right? And that was a major business, right?
Yeah.
So it was like
around that time,
the island would be in internment camps if they had followed through with that. Now,
the Japanese composed about what, almost a third of the Hawaiian population at the time. So
at that time,
a
Whereas
third of your population goes in, and another third watches them.
Right. Yeah. So whereas on the mainland, the businesses here they didn't support them as much. In fact, it actually turned on the Japanese in the internment camps, because there were many people trying to buy up the land that were owned by the Japanese in internment camps, and just really taking advantage of them.
Yeah.
So it was kind of hard. You had two different things going on in the country in the way how they were treated. So how do
It was
we?
crazy as I learned more and more about it. It was just like it's what you think you know, right? Like, oh yeah, I know about the internment camps. Yeah. But like once you get into it and some of the and you really, as I'm writing this and I'm trying to put the exercise of writing is an exercise of having a different perspective, right? And you put yourself into this perspective. And one of the things in my research that I found, it was from a museum in I was talking to the curator of Seattle little cultural museum, and they showed me this little river rock that was an artifact from an internment camp. And on the river rock was a little, I'm assuming it was a haiku. I couldn't read it, but it was like just a little poem, a short poem, and a name, a date. I can tell those characters. They're somewhat universal in Asian languages. But the curator was like, yeah, this is just a stone. This guy carved this poem into the stone, and it basically says an affirmation of that. I was here. This is my name on this date. I'm a person. I'm alive. Like I'm here. And it was in that moment where I was like, why would you need to like kind of say that you're here? And I was like, in those moments, the internment camps lasted for 3.5, 4 years, but they didn't know that.
Nope.
Right? When you're in the moment, you're like, is it gonna? Oh yes, it's gonna last 4 years. We're almost done, right? They don't know.
No.
Right? And you're like, how long is it gonna be? How long is the war gonna last? Is it gonna be done when the war ends? Like they didn't know. And when I got that sort of perspective on things, I was like, oh man, this everything just became elevated to a different level.
Yeah, that's when it becomes like to be or not to be. You start questioning your existence.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, what am I doing? What's my future? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
If I'm serving time, at least I know how much time in the prison I'm serving. Right? This
wasn't like that. You don't know when the war is gonna end. You don't know what's gonna happen to you. You're in this internment camp. Some of them were separated from their families. They didn't know where their other spouse or kids were at. Then you're finding out that your land got taken away. All that you've worked for. You came here to America to try to get that American dream. And now it's taken away. So what do you have left? Yeah. Many of those people came out of the internment camps and they were just broke.
No, they were given like at the end of the internment camps, they were given like $50. And a one-way train ticket to wherever they wanted to go.
That was it. Yeah.
So like, oh, great.
Right. Now it was around 2090, somewhere around 1990 in the 90s or something like that. The government was being pushed for a type of settlement, right?
Oh, It was in the 80s, actually. It was Reagan.
Okay, yeah.
So there's an interesting story about Reagan and all this. Near the end, a few years after the war, the Japanese kind of go back to some of them actually do go back to their towns or cities of origin. Some of them go completely different. They come east to Chicago or wherever else, right? Farther. One of these towns was the Japanese that went back there were getting, it was just incredibly, there's a lot of racial tensions, right? And the Army knew, it was large enough that the Army knew that this was a bad thing. This was not a good thing to happen because there were a lot of veterans, Japanese 442nd and everything else that were in this town.
Okay.
And so they sent in this the spokesperson and a few people and a few soldiers to go in and try to mitigate the situation and speak out that no, these Japanese people are heroes and everything else and they're good, they're Americans, like don't be a racist, right? So they sent something in to try to be positive and try to fix it. They knew they were in the wrong. right? So they sent this young man, and he gives some speeches, and they stay there, and they work through it with the community. Fast forward to, I think, 85, 86, Ronald Reagan is giving the reparations to the Japanese Americans. It happened during Ronald Reagan's term.
Mm-hmm.
The man who was in charge, who was put in charge of giving those speeches to that little town from the army to go back in there and try to like ease those racial tensions.
Yeah.
It was Ronald Reagan.
So
So Ronald Reagan was there kind of early on in the beginning where he like tried to ease the racial tensions in this town. And then at the very end, when they finally got the reparations, and had to admit that this was wrong, he was there again. So it was a very interesting like full circle there that I never.
That's very interesting. I didn't know that. That's cool. It wasn't. They were awarded $11,000 is what they got for the reparations, and that included for the deceased as well, if there was like somebody that could claim it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So and it might sound like a lot of money to a lot of people, but and maybe if it was paid back then, that would have been like a lot of money. But $11,000 at that time wasn't gonna. I don't think it was enough. But
no, I think I think on a monetary level, like I think everyone, no matter how you look at inflation or anything else, is like, it wasn't enough. But like Daniel Inouye, one of the biggest proponents and spokespersons from the 442nd, from the 100th from Hawaii, the way he speaks of it was like, they admitted they did something wrong, and that was the most important. Like it was one of the few times where the United States officially said we were wrong, full stop, no cap. Like
that was it. The fact that they were willing to do that. And a side story, right? So my friend who's Japanese, actually a good friend of mine, and we got into the comic book business. Not together, but separately. So he actually got his grandmother was in the internment camp. So she got that money along with his grandfather, and actually gave her portion to him to start a comic book. And that's kind of like how I ended up starting off with a comic book store.
Oh wow.
And that's here in California.
That's crazy.
So I kind of knew a little bit about that, the $11,000 that they were getting and stuff like that.
Oh, personal experience there.
There's a couple more as well. Okay, so it's 7:23 right now, and I've been queued up that we're going to be taking a break.
Okay.
And I think we can take that break now. And when we come back, we can talk a little bit more about Daniel Inouye. What he did there. Okay, and it's a very, very interesting story, and some of the other characters that he may have met along the way. All right, so we will be back in a couple of minutes, I believe.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.
Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with 2 comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales.
What if Hans Gruber from Die Hard had to battle the Joker from Batman the Animated Series in a dance battle? Or who would win in a race between Baby from Baby Driver and Snidely Whiplash? If Austin Powers and Shrek found themselves in a hot dog eating contest, who would emerge victorious? These are the questions we talk about on Nerd Killer Warfare. Debate the most absurd questions you've ever heard in popular culture. Register now by scanning the QR code or visiting bit.ly/EXP casting.
Welcome back to
Wow.
Sketch Up with Mog and Mel, and our special guest today is Tony Moy.
Hey,
That was a really quick bathroom break. I don't think we even had time to pull our pants up, right? Yeah. Or flush anything, right?
Pants?
Pants. Yeah, if you can
Pants?
see that. Yeah. Tony isn't wearing any.
Oh,
You just see from up here. Like,
That's all
keep
you
the
need to
camera
see.
high. That's all we do.
Okay. Now you may have noticed that our two artists here, Mog and Tony, are also painting. Tony's working on Dr. Doom, and Mog is working on Baroness. These pieces are on auction. If anybody wants to bid on them, you can do that in the comments, and we'll announce the winning bidders at the end of the show. Okay. So we're talking about the 442nd. It's a project that's dear to Tony's heart. It's also a story of our history of the Japanese Nisei in World War II, and it's also something that's dear to my heart as well, even though I am not Japanese. And there's an example of the art that Tony is providing on this project. Tony, how can they read these stories that you're creating?
You can read it by looking up the 442nd on Google. It's on Webtoons if you search for it, or you can go to, give me 1 second. Was it 440? Yeah, if you spell out 4, the number 4, 40 and second .com will bring you to a website with links to either Webtoons or Tapas, and then you can go from there.
Okay, great. And how much have you? How many chapters do you have now there?
So right now, there are 5 chapters. I have 6.5 done. 8 will be in the first arc of this. However, please do, if you're interested in it, please do catch it soon. I do have to take most of them down for a little while because I have a sponsor now. They'll be back up for free. They'll be back up for free in a month or two. But we're doing a sort of marketing campaign, and it'll be exclusively available, only available, like sort of, they're giving it away for free as well. So it's doing a sponsor with World of Warships, the video game.
whoa!
And World of Warships will be giving out my comic to their entire user base, as long as they play 3 games of their new release coming out in February. So there's a new release for World of Warships coming out in February. And if you play 3 games, and it's free to play, right? So it's a free video game, free to play. You will get the entire arc, PDF, special digital edition comic from World of Warships, and they'll send that out to you. And so to make that a little bit more exclusive, I kind of had to not post anything up. The other way you can get them as well, if you don't want to play the game, is to donate pretty much anything on my Patreon, and then when that comes out, you'll get it too on my Patreon. So literally anything.
Right. So if you haven't seen Tony's work, you really should take a look at this. He does some fantastic pieces of art for this project, right? So yeah, so you can get it free playing the War of Warships, but I would suggest go out there, support Tony, give him some love, get that donation, help him visit like other countries as well.
Yeah.
Put his work out there, get the word out there, and don't forget to like, share, and comment. Right, that always helps us out.
Would you say
sometimes more than the contribution of money that goes a longer way? So you had a question, Mark?
Oh yes. Like this is an ultimate like underdog story, kind of. The
Yes.
underdogs, and everybody loves underdog stories.
42nd.
Yeah, the unsung heroes, the underdog.
They're the unsung heroes. They're the heroes that went down in history that no one knows, right? I mean,
right.
that's
they're not spoken of too much. I mean, people have tried to bring their story to the forefront, but it hasn't really quite gotten there. They're and they were kind of like almost seen as the people that were. There was a lot of people that supported them during their campaign, but there was also a lot of people that didn't support them because they were seen as the enemy.
Yeah.
And so it was hard. Right? They didn't even want them to fight for us, but they did. And you before we went to the break, you brought up Senator Inouye. Yeah.
Yeah. Senator Inouye.
Right.
You talk about, dedicating your livelihood for your country, right? And this is what like people like Daniel Inouye especially personified, right?
Yeah.
Not only when given a chance to fight for the country that put your family behind barbed wire, right, in camps, it took everything away from what you were struggling for, right? Your farms, your cars, your homes, your businesses, take that all away, and that country comes back to you and says, "Hey, do you want to fight for us? Totally voluntary. It doesn't change how we're going to be treating you, but you're welcome to fight for the country that just did this to your family." And then you say yes, right? And you do this, and then you exceed at such a level, right, that you by any stretch of the measurements and imagination, you become the most decorated group of soldiers in history, not just in that war, right, but ever since.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone like Daniel Inouye goes, who loses his arm in the war, right?
Yeah.
Goes off and goes, you know what? I still want to serve my country. And he becomes one of the longest serving senators from Hawaii. The moment Hawaii becomes a state, he's there, and he goes, let me continue to serve my country and my state and where I'm from, and become president pro tem, right? In the Senate, he becomes fourth in line, third in line, right? Vice president, speaker, and then him.
Yeah.
So yeah, like talk about that mentality of you talk about patriotism. You hear the word patriotism,
right?
Tossed around a lot, over the last couple of years and things like that. It's a whole nother level that I couldn't even fathom.
And back then Hawaii wasn't a state yet.
No.
Yeah. So.
But they still consider themselves Americans, right?
Yeah. It's amazing. And he was a senior when Pearl Harbor got attacked, and he saw that.
Yeah.
He was a senior at McKinley High School, one of the more prestigious high schools, public high schools in Hawaii. And he also volunteered for the Red Cross. Right?
Yes.
So he was going to school as a senior, and then after school he'd go work at the
aid station.
Cross. Yeah, at the aid station, which was in
Lunalilo. Yeah,
Lunalilo. Yeah, which was fairly close to where he was. Now, when they approved for the 442nd to become the 442nd. He was one of the first volunteers.
Yes.
But he was denied entry, not because he wasn't healthy. It's because he was doing such a good job at the Red Cross. They didn't want to lose him.
Yeah.
But I guess he fought for that. And
it was
eventually got in.
It was a double whammy because the director of the Red Cross of the aid station said he was essential personnel, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the first people to sign up.
Yeah.
And he was like, why can't I get in? Like, what's going on? Like, I go to college. I'm one of the smartest people. I'm fit. Like, why can't I fight? Right. Yeah. And he's like, oh no, they told us you're essential personnel. You can't, we can't let you go. Just stay here and help out. Yeah. This is how you fight in the war. Exactly. In addition to that, you're also want to be a doctor, right? Yeah. So you're going to college to be a doctor, and we need doctors. So just by virtue, and this was happening in many of the wars ever since, like if you go into med school, you get a pass, right?
Oh,
yeah. So because we need doctors. Yeah. So if you say, no, I'm going to med school, and you get drafted, they're like, oh no, you can go to med school. Yeah. And so he was like, what? He's like, yeah. So you're going to med school, and the director says you're essential personnel. You're not going. He goes, quits the aid station, drops out of school, and he goes, how are you going to stop me now?
Yeah.
Like, bring it. Like, what else
I bet that pissed the parents.
Oh,
typical Asian.
He wrote a book, so that might be good reading for you.
Yeah.
And then so now he gets into he's got to go for training.
Yes.
He actually gets to see an internment camp.
Oh, for the first time.
Yeah.
Yes.
To see what it's like, because he's heard about it, but he's never seen it, right? And he saw the way how they were getting treated.
And before they so there are basically two groups, right? They're the Hawaiian Japanese Americans and the mainland Japanese Americans.
Yep.
And when they first met in training camp, and they brought them to the States and they first met, they were at odds. They were beating each other up. They're like, what's your problem? Like, like barely they're speaking Pidgin Island English, right? Pidgin English, stuff like that. And it wasn't until one of their commanders was like, we're gonna go to the we're gonna visit an internment camp. Yeah. And that's when the Hawaiian Japanese Americans, apparently the way Daniel Inouye mentions it, he was like, we were like, oh, we're going to have a good time. It's, they're taking us out of training camp. And, and we were all like singing and laughing on the way there. And on the way after they did that, after they got there on the bus ride home, it was silent.
Yeah. Yeah. They understood now.
Yeah, they understood, and they're like, "Okay, we got you. We got to stop fighting."
Yeah, that was an eye opener. Yeah.
No, for sure. Yeah, that again, it's all these little stories, right? And like right there, you have the beginnings of all these amazing scenes and all these amazing stories within it. Within that history.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to give a little shout out here to Dave. Thanks for dropping by, and Nick Barucci, if you don't know who he is. Hey, Nick.
Thank you.
Okay. And then now, we're talking about like how the 442nd was the most decorated unit as well in history, and they were given something like I think initially it was like about 2,000 awards, right? But after the war, they were still continuing to receive other awards, not just from the United States, but from other countries as well, where it amounted to something close to like 4,000 awards or so. You can correct me on that, Tony, if you have those numbers. But they received several Purple Hearts, but no Medal of Honors, right? And many of the deeds that they did were worthy of Medal of Honors, but they They didn't want to at that time. Okay? And that got corrected by President. Who was the president? That was President. It was just
It was President Clinton at the time.
Clinton, yeah.
They went back and reviewed it, and they just kind of matched things up. They're like,
yeah.
Oh, if we gave a Medal of Honor to this person who saved 15 people in his unit and did the XYZ, and this Japanese person only got the Silver Cross for doing essentially the same thing, then they should get upgraded, right? So they did this kind of like, it wasn't just, like, oh, well, we're just going to leave the medals, but they went back and they reviewed everything. And this was, to no surprise during the time, it was just much harder to do so. And if you had to think about it as well, just to, why, this is another thing when I started doing research and getting into the moment, like, how did they, in order to earn 18,000 medals, right? 14,000 Japanese Americans earning 18,000 medals. In order to earn 18,000 medals, how many situations did you have to find yourself in constantly and then come out successful to earn all those medals, right? The opportunity has to be there. You can't just be like, oh yeah, I did something. And that was because they were given so many of these impossible missions, these daunting missions. First onto the beach in Anzio, right? First up the hill, taking out impossible things, doing things where other battalions and other regiments had failed. It's getting in those positions over and over and over again is the only way to be able to say that you've earned 18,000 medals. So like that kind of also puts a spin on things as well when you think about the story behind the numbers or why the numbers, right?
And part of that reason is because there was quite a few people that felt that they were kind of like a throwaway regiment. They didn't really care. Their commanding general, I believe, Dahlquist.
Yeah, Dahlquist
was sending them into impossible missions.
Yeah.
He just wanted, just put them out there, right? But the 442nd was pissing them off because they kept coming back.
They kept coming back.
And succeeding in their missions.
Right. He was like, wait, you're still there? What? Literally, we would just kind of say, well, send in the Japs then.
Yeah, send in the Japs. They were kind of throwaway. And I believe that was part of the driving force that gave them that drive to create their motto, go for broke.
Yeah.
Right. Because they had nothing to lose. Literally had nothing to lose. There is like they felt their life wasn't going to go anywhere else. Right. So if they were going to make anything for themselves, this is it. This was their chance to shine, and that was their moment. Right. And I believe that was what encouraged them to tackle those assignments and achieve them. It just gave them like bounds of bravery and courage to do that.
I mean, you put it in that sense. Like there are so many stories afterwards where soldiers that went home. What are they going home to?
Yeah,
they went home. If you went to the war and you got injured but you survived, you got sent home because you couldn't fight anymore. They went home to the camps.
Yeah.
Right.
What kind of life is that? What is that?
Oh my! Like that was another thing where the epiphany hit me. I was just like, wait, not all of them like survived the war or died. It wasn't just survive or die. It was injured too, and
a lot of injuries. Yeah.
Wait, oh my God! How do you even? Again, it is these little things when you get into it. Of the story. But then when you think about the why behind the story or like the reasons behind the story, you're like, oh, that's a whole different level.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got to take like another break, and when we get back, we'll continue talking about the 442nd, and maybe we can we'll get into a little more about Senator Tony Moy and how he got his Medal of Honor, because it's kind of interesting in what he did, and I'll spend a little bit why on that. So we'll take a break right now, and we'll hope to see you guys back here.
All right.
All right.
Did you know that every experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out. Twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code.
You just finished the last episode of your favorite news show, and you just have to talk about it. But all your friends are ghosting you because of that incident last week at the buffet. Oh, you know the one. What you did to that chowder. Ugh. Keeps me up at night. So what do? Join writer Dan Wickline as he breaks down all your favorite pop culture media. Whether it's a review of the latest nerdy TV show or a dive back into the history of your favorite comic characters, Dan's ready to discuss all the hottest topics live. Join the conversation as Dan live streams Tuesday through Thursday at 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. The Dan Wickline Show, on The Experience, comic culture and sales.
You know how when you go to Comic-Con, after Comic-Con, you go to the hotel bar, and there's a whole bunch of people playing music and dancing, and you've got Pikachu and Lara Croft Tomb Raider doing the cha-cha slide just down from Deadpool and Batman and Wonder Woman? That's every Saturday night over on the Experience Twitch channel. Join Taji Beats for the EXP Dance Party, exclusively on Twitch, twitch.tv/the_EXP.
There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit comicshoplocator.com to find a store near you.
Welcome back, everyone, to Sketch Up with Mog and Mel and our special guest, Tony Moy. We're talking about his project, The 442nd. And we're getting into some of the stories here. But before we get back to that, let's take a look at what these guys have on. You see Tony's working on a beautiful Dr. Doom there. And Mom's got the Baroness up. These two pieces are available for bids if anybody wants to bid on them. We will announce the winning bids at the end of the show.
Do we do a starting bid? We have to do a starting bid, right? And also, is Baroness is a villain, right?
Yeah.
So in a way, it's funny because I'm doing a villain.
We're doing villains. So that I was thinking, I was like, when you said you were going to do a Baroness, I'm like, I could either do a G.I. Joe or we just keep it villainy. And I was like, what's something that I can potentially do on stream and talk at the same time? There's two of you. There's only one of me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got somebody here. Is that Kyle? That's bid a bid. Is that you, Kyle? You're bidding
It's a starting. Yeah, he's starting the bid.
$75 on each.
Because our question was, what is a starting bid each? So yeah.
Well, now people can beat me.
Okay.
The man behind the curtain.
All right, the man behind the curtain is
Right.
$75. Okay, so we are taking bids in increments of 5. So
Is it increments of 5 or more? Any?
increments of
I think increments of 25. Come on.
Yeah, the minimum.
There you
I
go.
think minimum be a little.
Yeah.
I have a minimum for this, but we'll see.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
there you
So
go.
it has to match the minimum.
Yeah.
What is the bidding rules?
I-
So if it's lower than the minimum, then no, right? No. How does it
Yeah,
go?
if it's lower than the minimum, then it won't go. Andre is saying he wants that Dr. Doom. Go ahead and place your bid, Andre.
Yeah. Come on, Andre.
Hey, what's up, Henri?
Yeah. I want the Dr. Doom too.
Kyle, Andre wants the sniper hit towards the end. That sounds like Andre too. If you've seen Andre at the shows, man, that guy, he snipers everybody that comes by his table.
Don't bid against a a business mogul, please. You will lose.
Yeah. So yeah, they're both artists are doing watercolors, and this is a traditional art. So
yeah. So like
Mog is working. Was that 8.5 by 11?
No, it's 8 by 10
8 by 10,
approximately.
okay.
What? How about you, Tony?
Mine's 9 by 12, but I'm
9 by 12. Yeah.
There you go.
so.
Do you custom cut your paper to whatever size, or do you?
Not this. I do have some. I do keep large sheets. What do they go? 20 by 30 are the larger sheets, or 22 by 34 or something like that.
Damn. Yeah.
And then those I cut down. I break those down to unique sizes depending on like I have a commission that's come. I have two. One is a very nice is a pastoral scene of Smallville, of basically of Superman's farm, right? So someone just wants to farm, and maybe like something small that hints at Superman, whether it's a streak in the sky or just him standing on a silo or a cape or something really minor that you'd be like, oh, what? But they want a nice wide landscape, pastoral, sort of Smallville, Kansas City farm scene. And so that one's going to be fun. That one's going to be a large one. And then I have another one that wants to do the infamous red dragon from D&D 2nd edition.
Oh yeah.
So
what's that? Is it the? Oh no, it's not Tehamut's.
No.
Okay. All
yeah.
right.
Yeah, it's totally different.
Okay.
Yeah. So when some of those are people that want like specially sized, I crop it to whatever the right dimension is for.
But that's usually rare for you, right? Just the special size.
I usually have one or two people that are always interested, and whether or not I pull the trigger, I have the time to do it is another question.
Of course.
And so,
we've got Mog's got a big one to do as well for this year. It's going to be a 24 by 36 piece of it's like a battle between what was it, Wolverine and who's the other character?
God of War.
God of War.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That sounds like fun. The big ones are tough because you want to stay loose, but then you want to get detailed, but then you got to stay loose.
I know it becomes really extremely tough. I think I'm definitely going to have to do a lot of mock-ups before I actually do it.
Yeah.
I have a question about the paper size. It like right now, me and Mel this year we were discussing, like we were saying like, dude, we were always standardizing our paper like 8.5 by 11, 11 by 17. And then because papers when we buy it doesn't come that way, right?
Nope, watercolor paper does not come that way.
At all. So I was like, at the end, I was getting so many like odds paper sizes, and I can't use them. And so I said, we discussed like, hey, can we maybe try different paper sizes this year? And then we came to an agreement. So I was wondering, did you morph into that eventually yourself? Like,
no, that's just what I started at. I was just like, I can't help you. Watercolor paper comes in these sizes, and that's it. So I work in 7 by 10, 9 by 12, 10 by 14, 12 by 16, because those are the standard watercolor
paper size.
Paper, that's just how they're done. You can find them a little off, and they're harder to find, and whatever else. And so, but if they want a certain size, I'd say pay for it, custom size. Sorry, can't help you. Yeah, I am impressed that you try to follow that comic book standard for so long. I was not able to. It was pretty quick right away. I was like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. And for the most part, I think people are fine with it. You just let them know. So, did something freeze? Did I freeze?
No, we can see you. I believe Mog and Mel may have just frozen there. And
Okay.
we'll give them a second to come back.
Well, I'm going to go through the comments. I saw some comments before, so I'll just...
Yeah, you did have a question back in there.
Yeah. Looks like they fell off. Let's see. We're going to go back to Zadwit. Tony, I know you probably never run out of 440-second stories to tell, but are there any points of Japanese history you would like to do a comic strip on? I always had a fascination with the samurai and the sort of the shogun eras, and there's so many amazing stories there, especially if you weave in a lot of the mythology, Japanese mythology. Is a lot of fun. Especially the watercolor synchronizes so well with Japanese sensibility. Is just there's something there that just kind of fits nicely. So maybe at some point we'll see what happens. This is the 442nd and sort of the Japanese American. There's so many stories I could tell after this that I haven't even thought about it yet. But it'll be interesting. It'll be fun. Let's see what else. Great premiere show. Hi all. Got some links for everybody. All right. Henri is watching this from everywhere. I'm also streaming this on Twitch. So if you have any questions out there, now's the time. Looks like we lost the hosts of honor. So we'll
they are popping back in as we speak. So we'll see if we can't get them on. There we go.
Awesome. Welcome back.
The battery died.
Oh, battery died.
I forgot it was plugged in.
So getting back here again. So you guys were talking.
I think
about
they wanted to respond to the comments because there's a lot of comments.
Yeah. I just went back to comments. I saw that there were like one or two questions.
Tony was professional. He wrapped it up for us.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So I was talking about paper sizes, and then we just like. So if people want to commission you, does it go like you just say small, medium, large? Is that
pretty much is what I do? I have small, medium, large, and then I have studio, right? So it's largest professional, I guess is what I put it. Is like there's some background, there's a little more consideration of things, but then if you want me to go crazy and not really think about how long I'm spending on it or whatever else, then there's the studio one, which is
nice.
Whatever.
By the way, sorry, were you saying something, Tony?
No. I was just like, yeah.
Oh, by the way, for the viewers out there, Tony and I, our challenge is to finish this in 2 hours.
Right, so
was it? I didn't know it was to finish this in 2 hours. I would have picked something else.
So these are available for bid, and currently Kyle has a bid of $75 on each one of these. You are all welcome to place a bid as well, and we are looking for bids of increments of 25. And so the next bid on any of these is going to be at 100. So don't be shy.
I'm fully willing to bid on my own piece, just to let everyone else know.
Boom.
There
you have it. Okay.
Can you bid on mine though?
Yes, I want to.
You don't want to, huh? It's okay.
I'm waiting to get my own.
Yeah, it's not a Dr. Doom.
Oh God, yeah.
I've been waiting for Dr. Doom for years now.
Yeah, that's how I keep you, so you don't run away.
It's
better than a slave Leia chain, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You never give them what they want. So there you go.
All right. Let's see.
Okay, so before the break and the technical difficulty, we're talking about Tony's project, the 442nd, and some of the stories that have come out there. We brought up Senator Noy, one of the more decorated ones in there. What can you tell us about his involvement in the 442nd and how he got his Purple Heart. He actually earned 3 Purple Hearts during that campaign, I believe.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Along with other medals as well.
Yeah, so he was so I always knew of Inoue. I've heard of him like before before I started this whole thing. I was like, oh yeah, he's an Asian senator, right? Like there, you know him, like Duckworth and whatever else, right? Just a handful of them because they're kind of rare.
Yeah.
And so I noticed one time I was like, oh, he's missing an arm. Oh, he lost it in the war. Oh, he's a veteran of war. Okay. And it never clicked for me to like do any due diligence or research or read up on that. Like, oh, okay, he lost it in the war. Great. Yeah. But once you do, right, and this is the story that I know you're kind of getting towards, is like this scene that is unbelievable. Like you put it in a movie, you'd be like, what?
Oh my God.
Right? Like so for those of you who don't know, and I'm going to go through the story, is basically and this is basically my first arc to a certain extent, but Inoue was I believe it was a lieutenant of a company, and they were tasked to take out a series of 3 bunkers, 3 machine guns, right? They were kind of on a hill. And before they could even get started, so he's leading his company in, and as luck would have it, before they could even get to the first one, like majority of his men get mowed down. They take casualties, and they full stop. And any other company would be like, any other group of soldiers would be like, oh crap, we got to wait for reinforcements, fall back. For whatever reason, and to hear in interviews of Inoue retelling his story, he kind of says that, I don't know what happened. People tell me this is what happened. I kind of don't believe it in my own way. But in war, you do stupid things. And this stupid thing, right? He kind of says that. And he decides to charge single-handedly, right, and lead towards these turrets. Yeah. And so he gathers up some grenades from the fallen men that from around him and stuff like that, and he charges to the first one, and they probably weren't expecting anyone, right? They just took them all down. They're not going to expect a single lone soldier. Gets to the first one, tosses some grenades, takes it out.
Wow.
Goes a little further. He keeps on going. He's got his little machine gun, and he's got more grenades, and he gets to the second one, and in a flurry of a couple bullets and some grenades, takes them out.
Whoa.
And then by this time, the third bunker of the machine gun on the hill finally notices him, right? They're like, oh, there he is. Soldier lowers down and levels out a rocket-propelled grenade. And he fires a rocket-propelled grenade at him, right as he's about to throw. Okay. And the thing is, technology as it is, he lucked out for a split second, right? Because whatever reason it was, this rocket-propelled grenade did not explode. It didn't explode when it hit him. It hit his arm, right as he was about to throw. And in the resulting chaos, he started looking for the grenade because he's like, I just pulled the pin out of this grenade. I was about to throw it. This rocket-propelled grenade comes flying at me. And he's looking on the ground for it, and he sees the grenade, which is still in his hand, attached to his arm that's no longer attached to him. Yeah.
What?
He pries the grenade out of his own hand, and he throws it left-handed, right? And he says that it just falls right into the perfect spot, into that bunker, explodes, and takes him out.
So that's too good to be true.
Right? And if I told you this, I'm like, hey, I'm going to write this little war movie, and I'm going to have this scene. This one soldier takes out 3 German machine gun turrets. You're going to be like, yeah, that's a little unbelievable, Tony.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You sure? Like that doesn't sound, it sounds like something from like Rambo or Hot Shots Part 2, something like that, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But that's what he did.
Yeah.
And more amazingly, even after that, he didn't. He manages to get some tourniquet. He still leads the rest of his soldiers, and he tells the soldiers, "Hey, they're going to send reinforcements. Cover this ridge. Get that hill." And he's still directing the rest of his men that finally catch up to him. And he doesn't gets to the first aid tent for about another 12 to 18 hours, right? He's still out there.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
It's amazing how he survived, because I believe in that attack, he got shot in the belly.
Yes, he did. It was actually very early on in the attack. He was
exactly. As he was attacking that first bunker.
Yeah. It was already
after he attacks after he gets through with the second bunker, and he's trying to attack the third one, or I think it was after that, he gets shot in the leg, right?
Yeah.
And his
men after the third one, he gets shot in the leg and he tumbles down a little bit.
Yeah. So his men get to him, right? And they're all worried about him.
Yeah.
Right? And he says something like, "What are you guys doing?
Yeah,
the war is over. Get back there."
Right. He's like, "What are you guys looking at? Get back to your post." You're like, "What?" You're like, "Sir, your arm.
You're wounded.
Your arm is missing,
and you're shot in the leg."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even then, so they bring him. They finally get him to the first aid tent, right? And they bring him to, there's a triage area. They just dump bodies in. They put him on cots, and they got a triage. They got who's worth saving and who can we save, right? And he kind of sees, a group of doctors kind of come by, and they kind of point at a couple and whatever, and they slowly, and then he sees them go away, and then finally a priest comes by. And the priest says something, go with God or whatever else is like, and he's like, "Thank you, Father, but I'm not ready to see God yet." He's like, "What?" Here he is, missing an arm, shot in the leg, shot in the belly, and he's like, "What are you talking about? Like, why are you giving me my last rites? Like, I'm not ready." And the priest's like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah." And he goes back and gets the doctors. And the doctors come back like, "Okay, let's go." And that's what he brings us. So like they were gonna leave him for,
Yeah, because most guys, if you get shot in the stomach and then you get shot in the leg,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
You're pretty much considered dead. Yeah, how he survived, I don't know.
Yeah, you miss an arm,
Yeah. So So yeah, that was the end of his career. They didn't discharge him like right away, right? And at that time, he was a second lieutenant, right? So he gets sent back to the mainland, and he's in a hospital. I forget where it is.
I believe it's in Detroit.
Detroit, yeah. Okay, so that's where he meets Bob Dole.
Yep.
Yeah, and they become like good friends.
Who's Bob Dole? Is he famous?
Bob Dole is another senator. He recently passed away.
He's a Republican senator. Yeah. So Illinois is Democrat, but Dole is Republican, and he becomes a presidential candidate later on.
Bob Dole ran for president in 2008.
Yeah, and
right?
he didn't win though, apparently.
Yeah,
but they became really, really good friends, right?
Yeah.
So Inouye at that time was still thinking that he's going to come back to Hawaii, and he's going to become a doctor, a surgeon, right?
Yeah.
But in talking with Bob Dole, and Bob is telling him like what he plans to do in Congress, and he's just like really intrigued with that.
Yeah.
He comes back to Hawaii, and of course he gets a hero's welcome. Mm-hmm. But at that point, he decides that, you know what, Hawaii needs to be represented, and he's going to be the guy to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he
And that's
beats
when he
Bob
starts
Dole to the
making-
Capitol.
Yeah, yeah, and I think he was also saying that Bob Dole will probably beat him to the Congress, but I think it was him that got there first. Yeah,
So what was this like during the 50s or the 60s?
during the 50s.
50s. Hawaii became a state in the 50s.
59.
Right? Yeah.
59. Yeah. So, and
right before
he
Alaska.
became the first representative for Hawaii.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's how long he's been holding. He held that post until about 2012. He died in office, still working.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He died in his office, in his chair, working.
How old was he? You said 2024?
2012. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that because I had moved back to Hawaii in 2012, and it was I think it was shortly after we moved back there that he passed away, and I was seeing that, and I respected him, and I was like sad to hear that, but honored to be able to know of his story. Another interesting side story too is that I had a friend in high school. This girl that I knew, a good friend of mine, her name is Sandra Wong, and she was going to become, her goal was to become a doctor too. So when we graduated from high school, she went somewhere on the mainland and somewhere on the East Coast to go to college and gonna try to get into a pre-med from there. But during that time, during the summer, she was interning for Inouye in DC, right? And it's like 2 years later, we're having a conversation, and then she tells me, "You know what? I think I'm going to become a lawyer." And I go, "What made you change your mind?" Right. So she told me about like how she would have these conversations with Senator Inouye, and Inouye was actually trying. She was convinced that Inouye was trying to do good, and like the other politicians that we may try to, talk about it and so forth. But he believed in his honesty and his good heart, right? And believed that the fight that he was doing was worthy. So she decided to become a lawyer and hopefully follow that same path. And, well, she became a good lawyer, but she didn't follow that path.
She got hooked into.
She was trying to follow his lead in trying to like help people. Yeah.
That's very cool.
But, so Inouye had a change of plans. And he went from being trying to get into pre-med to becoming a lawyer. Yeah.
Well, Tony, you and I, we've got about 47 minutes left to wrap everything up. So
what?
Yeah. Good luck, dude. I'm busting my ass right now. So yeah.
Well, that other guy stopped asking me questions that I can paint.
Oh yeah. That guy is so annoying, right, Tony? Like I feel your pain. Seriously. Like I wonder is there a way we can just maybe we should ask him questions, right?
Yeah, you could ask him questions.
Who is that guy now? Do you even know?
I have no idea who that guy is. He just pops in and out of here. All right, so we have these two pieces of artwork that Mog and Tony is working on. If you'd like to bid on those, the next bid we're taking is $100. We do have a standing high bid right now, turned in by Kyle. And so if you want to take that away from him.
I have a question, Tony. Like, how are you liking that paper, the Hanumula?
I actually really enjoy it. Depends on what you're painting. If you try to get, so the Hanumula paper that I bought is the 450-pound Hanumula paper, or 450 grams per meter squared, right, or whatever it is, like the 450.
They're really
300 is sort of the standard is what
it's about 140 pounds in American terms.
Yeah.
So if it's 400, is it 50? 400 something?
Yeah, 450 something.
I am pretty sure that's 156 pounds because arches, remember how they sell that one is 140 pounds and one is 156 pounds?
Yeah.
I think that's the 400 something G, maybe similar to that,
Yeah,
approximately.
it might even be a little bit more than might be like the regardless, but it's a little bit more than the arches. However, they don't make it in a hot press.
Oh.
But their cold press is not as bad as some cold press that I've used before. So their cold press is actually workable. It's not as rigid. There is some texture to it. So it makes for some, if you're comfortable with watercolor and you're trying to do detail, you can do it. And it's not as annoying as some other cold press. So
right now, are you using
it also lifts easier on that, I think. I haven't proven it, but I think it lifts a little bit easier.
Yeah, definitely. It blends better too, right? Have you noticed?
It blends.
Hello? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I guess I can say that. Yeah. So I do enjoy it.
So right now you're doing arches?
The thing about Hanamula paper, you have to import it. They don't make it.
Dude, I actually found it online. I think Jerry's Artorama was selling it.
Yeah.
And it was pricey. So yeah.
Well, I found that if you order it from Europe, if you order it if you make an order over $100, it becomes worth it. Because the international shipping, you might have to wait a little bit longer, but it becomes worth it. Because like Jerry's Artorama and the other companies selling it here are trying to mark it up again.
Yeah.
Right. To then sell it, and you're paying shipping here. So if you're buying a couple of them, it's kind of worth it.
All right. So Kyle was asking, what makes that paper special?
I don't know if it's paper quality is simply is a preference. It isn't, going to make your artwork one way or the other. But if you have a preference on how you like to work, one of the things for me that I do enjoy on it is that for some reason, I think it lifts a little easier. So I can do some lifting techniques. And also the texture is kind of fun for me because I've been working on hot press for like the last 8-9 years.
Yeah.
So suddenly tossing a little paper that has a little bit of texture becomes a little change of pace for me. It keeps me on my toes a little bit. I have to be a little more thoughtful. So that to me, if you've gone from cold press and you're like working on cold press and then you work on this, maybe it might be interesting because it's not as rough as sort of the standard cold presses that I've seen here. But yeah, it's just a little bit different. That's all I'll say to it. Nothing makes it.
Yeah, but Kyle, to answer your question also, technically, I mean, if you want, I'm not going to go into the actual specifics, but technically this is actually not paper. They're 100% cotton. And that's one. And then the way it's manufactured, this is, I think if you are using Hanamula, that it's an Italian, right?
Hanamula, I thought it was German, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Oh, German. Okay. So yeah. And then the way they call something called a sizing. So the way they use a glue to bond all the fibers together, the cotton fibers together, that's another thing. That's a whole different kind of art. There's an art to it, and sizing is really, really important. And these papers are specifically manufactured that way to make the best quality. And also, these guys will last a lifetime. You will not degrade because again, they're cloth basically.
Yeah. Once you get past a little bit of the more the cheaper, I guess, watercolor paper, it becomes relatively consistent, right? There's the sort of affordable, the student grade watercolor paper, and if you're using that, you'll see a big difference in change once you go up to sort of the more professional, more expensive watercolor paper. You'll definitely see it, but once you get within that expensive, I think it's harder to tell the difference unless you're using it constantly and you're more varied and you're more aware of different little minor techniques, or you're aware of how fast certain colors blend together, or how fast water gets absorbed by the paper.
Yeah.
So it really takes a little bit more experience to really tell those additional nuances.
Wow. So it's not just laying down the paint.
Yeah. I had to do this watercolor. My Twitch stream one time gave me a $20 watercolor paint challenge. And so they donated $20. And I went to Walmart to buy $20 worth of art supplies. And so I had to buy the paper, I had to buy brushes, I had to buy paint.
Oh my God.
Yeah, right? And I spent like $13, $14 on the best paper I could find at Walmart for watercolor paper in their art section. I spent like $2 on brushes and like $5 on the cheapest watercolor paint.
Yes.
So for me, the order was paper. If you give me bad paper and watercolor, there's nothing I can do.
No.
There's nothing. If you give me a toilet paper and watercolors, you give me the best watercolors, you give me the best brushes, it's still toilet paper.
It's gonna look like trash. Yep.
Right. And then it goes paper, paint, and then brushes. I'll use a toothpick to paint if I have to, and I can still make something look okay.
So that makes me actually follow up to that statement. Tool versus skill. Like, do you really believe that you can just cover up to a point if you want to be a professional? Like, skill will cover everything, and you can just draw with crayons, or is tool just as important as skill?
I think the way to look at it is not full stop one or the other. It's all skill and none of the other. There's a scale in there somewhere, and I think that if you have the fundamentals and the skill sets, and you understand, if you understand color theory, right, you can make some really fun things with just basic Crayola crayons, and compared to someone else who doesn't understand color theory, right, or lighting or form, and when they color something versus someone who's knowledgeable in that colors something, I think that experience and that knowledge is going to produce a better product, right? Yep. That being said, I think that it's not always the most expensive paints, the most expensive brushes that make the artist, right? I do think skill has a higher level, but at higher levels, the proper tools give an incremental, exponential boost to the end product, right? You give me really nice watercolors, really nice paper, really nice brushes, I'm gonna be able to excel a lot further than if you did the same thing for someone else that doesn't have the years of experience or knowledge or whatever else, right? They'll produce better work as well, right? More saturated colors or whatever else, finer lines with a better brush and all that other stuff. They'll also do better, but it'll go further for someone who has, I think, the experience and the skill set.
Okay, so Stevie B is asking, can you store these in a portfolio or a frame? Would that be better in a frame to prevent the curling?
Oh, that's a whole nother story. Yeah. Tony, you take that, man.
So the one thing about this, like mine's curling, which is when I look on the screen, all of a sudden it looks warped and it looks like deformed a little bit, as compared to when I'm looking at it, because the paper can't quite tell, but it's kind of warping. So,
yeah, I do see that.
So on one hand, I was looking up at the screen and like, oh, is my perspective off? Like, what's going on? Like, no. It's just the way the camera and the warped paper is looking. One of the things with nicer paper is generally that it's made of cotton. Right? Cotton fibers are nicer fibers or more durable fibers at the very least, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that you can do there is that at the end of all this, if you didn't tape it or it starts to curl, you can actually spritz down the back end of it and use an iron on low setting and just iron it flat again. Mm-hmm. So that is a thing that you can do. So in general, don't worry about it. Once it's dry, it won't warp anymore, right? It's having moisture on one side of the paper versus the other side of the paper. And as it evaporates, there's a force that happens that pulls the paper. And if you don't tape it down, then it does like goofy things on you. So yeah. And it's kind of and as long as it's not crazy creased, right? You can't iron out a crease. But if it's, I've had some shipping mishaps once in a while where the envelope gets rolled and the user and the buyer gets it and they're like, oh no, it's rolled, now what am I gonna do? And like, you can either send it back and I'll fix it and send it back to you or whatever else, but you can also
try
iron it if you feel brave, right? You can
yeah, but make sure though, when you do that, you ask the artist, if you're a collector, is this 100% cotton? Because if it's a cellulose paper, it will react differently.
Yeah.
So that advice that Tony gave is only for actual 100% cotton.
Yeah. And yes, we're talking about cotton, the fabric of our lives. You have to look out for cotton.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So that kind of also makes me think about like when you were younger, did you end up spending more money on art supplies, or as you grew older, like because you became wiser, you don't spend as much?
When I was young, I basically just bought pens and ink, right? I was just a black and white artist for a long time.
Yeah.
And so my expenditure on that was pretty low to begin with. Like that's probably one of the simplest. If you just go into plain old illustration, pencil, pen, and ink, it's probably pretty cheap. That's probably one of the cheaper mediums to get into.
Wait, so you were only thinking of never just doing black and white artists only, not color?
Yeah. That I had convinced myself that I was one of those people that just saw the world in black and white and shades of gray. Like people who worked with color were magicians and wizards, and I don't understand. They're savants. I don't understand how their mind works. Right? It was crazy. I didn't understand it. And then eventually, as luck would have it, I stumbled across watercolor and
okay, we've got to take a break, and when we come back, we'll get back to Tony as he tells us how he transitioned into color.
Yeah.
All right.
Transformer.
Yeah.
Why was Princess Zelda sad after watching a bunch of YouTube videos? She couldn't find the link in the description. We'll stop if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's super easy. Click subscribe and click the bell when you do. And thanks for supporting the EXP. You know how when you go to Comic-Con, after Comic-Con, you go to the hotel bar, and there's a whole bunch of people playing music and dancing, and you've got Pikachu and Lara Croft Tomb Raider doing the cha-cha slide just down from Deadpool and Batman and Wonder Woman? That's every Saturday night over on the Experience Twitch channel. Join Taji Beats for the EXP Dance Party, exclusively on Twitch, twitch.tv/the_EXP.
Comic Collectibles is here for you every Wednesday with AR Comics for two very important reasons. To sell you rare, one-of-a-kind comics that you'll love, and to confuse AR with old man talk. You see, Rex and John are, how should I put this, ancient as the roots of the mountains. So every week, Rex and John fill in AR in yet another area of pop culture that he missed because he's too young, just didn't have the time, or just really doesn't care about. It's a real public service they provide. Come buy some super rare and unique comics, while old men explain long-dead sci-fi shows to a younger man making that confused puppy face. Every Wednesday from 6 to 8 Eastern with Rex, John, and AR Comics. Comic Collectibles on The Experience. Comic culture and sales.
Go follow The Experience on TikTok at @the_EXP1 or scan the QR code on the screen. Our TikTok is like everywhere else we are, except you only have to deal with us for a minute. Seems like a win-win to me.
Hey, this is Pat Shand. I'm at New York Comic Con. I have books here, Gangster as Barista. This is in trade now. My own company, Space Between, coming out in single issues from Black Mass Studios in November. I am happy to be here. And what else should I say? I'm probably on Kickstarter now. No matter what time it is, I'm probably going to be doing one right now. And you are watching this on The Experience.
Wow.
Welcome back.
Another really fast pee break.
Once again, welcome back to
I didn't have to get up to pee.
The Experience. And we're talking to Tony Moy. And before the break, we were talking about how when he started, he was doing black and white.
Oh, yeah.
And eventually he transitioned into color. So how did you get into color, Tony?
Yeah.
By accident.
Ooh, that's the best kind.
Somebody spilled some ketchup on your piece, and that changed it.
Yeah, a jelly and marmalade, and so I was always in my day job. I was always the guy that was always doodling. Right, I'm in a meeting. I'm taking some notes in a meeting. I'm also doodling. I'm on a phone call. I'm doodling. So I was always drawing. That part never stopped.
Yeah.
And then one particular year, about 10 years ago now, probably, I had a very tumultuous personal year. Lots of personal shit happened, and just not feeling the best. But the one thing I kind of threw myself into was art, right? I kind of went through my own homemade art therapy session.
Okay.
And for whatever reason that year, I can't put a finger on it exactly, but I equated to this a little bit, and Mog, maybe you can empathize a little, but I hear of like women when they go through something tumultuous, they go through a breakup or something like that. They go like they dye their hair, they cut their hair, they do something drastic, right?
Uh-huh.
Right, and that semblance to that feeling for a certain element of that was me that year. I was just like, I just got to do something drastic, and what it was like I started trying to figure out acrylics or oil painting. I bought markers and I tried to do marker art. I tried digital painting, and I just tried all these different things. And then that year, a little bit before, a couple years before, I had met Ben Templesmith.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, that dude. And then I remember this vividly. It was at a convention. I was kind of helping him out, or kind of friends or whatever else, just starting our friendship. And I remember being behind the table and I was watching him, and he was painting with a glass of wine. Someone had given him some wine at this show, probably C2E2 or something like that. And he was painting with it. And then he pulled out a small little, he had just started watercolor. He's pulled out this small little watercolor tray and splattered some watercolor, and I'm like, oh, watercolor, like that's interesting, you know. Maybe I'll give that a shot. That doesn't look that hard, right? And so I had no idea what I was doing. So I decided to go and I bought this cheap $30 set of watercolors. It had like 18 colors on it. And I was like, oh, let me just play around with this. And I was doing it. I was watercoloring on printer paper, all sorts of, I had no idea what I was doing. Printer paper, literally like sketchbook paper. I was making all the mistakes. But what I could kind of say about that was that while a lot of the frustration in the other mediums would occur, I would just kind of get frustrated, and I, you know, just like, I need more, I need to buy more markers, or why do I have to wait for this oil to dry, or what's going on with this acrylic? Why won't it blend? For whatever reason, whatever failures and mistakes I was making with watercolor, the conceptual simplicity of what it was supposed to be kept its hooks in me, and it kept me kind of like, no, it can't be that hard. I can figure this out. It's watercolor. We've been working with this since kindergarten. And so I just kept poking at it and kept like, no, let me figure this out. Like, how does this work? Like, what am I supposed to do? And yeah, it just wouldn't let me quit. I can't quit you. So
Yeah.
That's
Then how did you then get to know about colors? Because it was a whole different animal then.
Yeah, a lot of my original watercolors were just, you know, standard. If it was yellow, I painted it yellow. If it was green, I painted it green. If it was orange, I painted it orange. You know, and then it was like, you know, if it was blue, I painted it blue, and if it was light hitting it, I did it light blue, and then dark blue. Right? It was just very simplistic and simple.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I realized, like, you know, I actually do like it. Let me spend some more time and figure it out. And one of the things I can kind of equate it to, so my educational background is actually in sort of the sciences, like every good Asian boy. I had intended to be in med school, right? And so I did all the sciences. I did all biology and chemistry and biochem and all that, or all that fun stuff. And one of the things that just going through the sciences imparts on you is the ability to kind of, I think, you know, do experiments and detach yourself from it, right? You're like, oh, what's my hypothesis? How do I, you know, what's my hypothesis? What happens if I do this? What is the result? Oh, okay, well, that didn't happen, right? Okay, let me go back to the beginning and try this part with the experiment and go back to the, and so I think for me, a lot of it was just that mentality of I'm doing experiments rather than rather than the typical artist angst, right? Of like, why am I such a failure? Why can't I figure this out? So it became this, you know, just trying to figure out and doing these little experiments and being like, okay, if I do this, how did that affect it? Okay, well, what if I do this? So I think that scientific method, if you will, helped out a lot. Either to take away sort of the personal fault of being a failure and not being able to get things right, to just experimenting and being logical about it in such a way that it wasn't about feel, right? It wasn't just doing it by what's the science behind it. And so
yeah, it's like but also maybe you're blessed with not being too sensitive too. I think there are some people who are naturally just more sensitive, right? So I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that also comes with just experience and life experience, I think, right? Where where you're able to not take things personally.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a hard lesson to learn. I think that's one of the first lessons that, every good artist learns to do, is to detach themselves from their work a little bit. Right. Because you have to be honest if you want to get better at it. Right. You have to be honest with the caliber and the quality of your work. You have to separate, oh, that's just my style. Right. I see a lot of younger artists hide behind, that's just my style. Oh, so your style is just bad anatomy. Right. No, that's not your style. You're just hiding behind that word because it's hard to learn that and to practice that. Right.
Well, yeah, it is hard for an artist to do that. You're putting yourself out there.
Oh, absolutely.
For public scrutiny, right? So these are defenses and walls that an artist will put up to protect themselves and not get hurt. Right?
Oh,
you're right. Yeah, you do learn that you need to let go of that and be open to what people are saying. It doesn't mean that you got to listen and obey it and follow it, but you listen to what they're saying, try to understand what they're saying and about your work, and you decide where you want to take it or not.
That kind of reminds me of that guy, that the artist Andy Park, the one who actually does costume designs. Because I heard him, I was having a conversation with him once, and he actually said, the less ego you have, the better artist you're going to be.
Yeah, and I have to say with Andy, he was actually quite open from the very beginning, because I met him early on when he was in Image, and he was doing what was it, Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
And I actually went to his studio. He was sharing his studio with a bunch of other Image artists. I kind of forgot who they all were, but I still remember this. He asked me, and at that time I had a couple stores running, but at that time he had asked me, Mel, what do I need to do to keep people interested in my book? Right. What do I need to do? You've read it. And I said, yeah, I did read it, Andy. And I'll tell you what, right? Just work on one thing only. Do this.
Mm-hmm.
Just put your book out there on time. Right? Because the biggest problem during that time was that all these Image books were just not coming out. They were running 6 months late, 1 year late.
Right.
These guys were all these young artists were making so much good money. They put out a book, get that first issue, they've got $1 million to play with. Mm-hmm. And it's well, what do I need to work for?
Yeah.
Not thinking about, you've got a whole series to work on, right? So a lot of books were coming out late. I said, if you want to continue this, Andy, just be honest with your work and take pride in it and put it out there on a monthly basis or 6 weeks if that's your schedule.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to tell people that you're going to have it out every 6 weeks. Try to stick to that. Be loyal to those guys that are supporting you and stuff. And I'm going to say that for the most part, he kept true to that for a couple of years or so before he took off. Right. So I gotta commend him for that. That he didn't have that ego running into him, and that he could listen and partake of that information.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people can do that, especially early in their life.
Yeah, early in the artist's journey, as it were, it's a tough one. Especially I think nowadays with all the technology and what's sort of expected with you, it's sort of, hey, all right. I summarize it kind of saying you're supposed to go go work on your craft. You're going to be an artist. You had to go practice. Okay, you go in. It's a solitary soul sucking. Your friends are partying, and you have to, spend the time to sketch hands and thumbs and toes and anatomy and everything else. Right? You're spending your time alone, figuring out what works for you. How are you going to problem solve these things, right? Because at the end of the day, that's kind of what it is. And then you put it out there. And then everyone, you put your heart and soul into it, right? And then you put it out there in the world and say, oh, well, don't take it personally. Because sometimes people don't like it just because it's not their style. Yeah. And then sometimes people don't like it because you've done something wrong. Mm-hmm. And sometimes people just don't like it because they can't tell you why. But don't take it personally and just go back and work on your craft to come in, right? And you're like, huh? like you have, at some point you have to either detach or go into depression.
Yeah.
Depression.
Yeah.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
Because
and then nowadays you have to be a personality too. They expect you to be, I've hidden away in my corner of my closet practicing in silence and solitude and introversion, and now you expect me to be entertaining?
Yeah. They want the whole package now.
Yeah, like what?
They want you to be a rock star.
Yeah, get out of here.
Also, for me, I think it helps is that I think maybe you and I were we have an analytical mind naturally, maybe, because when people didn't say, like you say in a con, you put your artwork out there and they're not responding like you want to, right?
Yeah.
For me, I just saw it simply as, oh, mine is not good enough yet. That means it's a sign that I need to get better.
Yeah.
That's all I saw it as, like black and white, kind of like binary. So that's actually, I mean, if you really don't have, like you say, an ego attached to it,
yeah, right.
It's a good gauge, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, the ego is the tough part, because how do you not want to be proud of something you spent hours, days, weeks, years getting better at, right? Like, human hubris wants to show off a little bit. You want to be proud.
Really?
I spent 15 hours on this piece and you're telling me not to be proud of it or have an ego about myself a little bit. And I'm doing things that, most people, after a while can't do.
Right.
Wow.
Hold that thought. We're going to take another break. And then, the pieces that Tony and Mog is working on is still up for bid. So we're looking for a bid, next bid on that for $100.
10 more minutes, please.
So we'll be right back.
We're going to stretch this podcast for another couple hours.
Join the party. Head over to our Linktree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.
There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit comicshoplocator.com to find a store near you.
Welcome back to the experience. You're watching SketchUp with Mog and Mel, and we have our special guest here, Tony Moy. We've been talking about his project
I'm
on the
super
442nd. And
What were you talking about?
well, before the break, we were talking about Tony. But before I get back onto that, I just wanted to say that thank you, Nick. He just bumped the bids up to $100 each. Ronald is asking what size they are. Tony, you're working on a 9x12. Is that correct?
Yeah, 9x12.
9x12. And Mog, you're at
8x10.
8x10. So hopefully that you're still there, Ronald, listening to that. So if you want to check into Tony's big project, the 442nd, you can Google it, 442nd, and that will bring you to where you can get all his complete stories. Is that correct, Tony?
Yep. So I'll again, because I just got my first sponsor for the comic, which is super exciting.
Congratulations for
Yes,
that.
that is amazing.
Gives me access to a broader audience. It's the video game world of warships. So it gives me access to theirs, and it kind of makes sense because in the game you can pick any warship from history, and even within World War II, and they're historically accurate and correct and all that other fun stuff. And so people already got to have some knowledge of the world wars and history and things like that. So that's kind of cool. And then and so they'll be sharing the first story arc of my comic with their players, and they'll be sending it out to all of them, which is really cool. There's easily over 100,000 players daily.
That's a nice niche too.
Yeah, for sure.
It definitely fits your story.
Right. And so I'm super excited about that. But that means for a couple months, I do have to take that arc down so that you can get it exclusively either through World of Warships or through my Patreon. So with any donation on my Patreon, you'll get the entire arc in February. And then it'll come back for free, and it'll come back in May. Which works well because May is Asian American Pacific Islander History Month. So
yeah,
May,
a lot of good things on that.
Out for free again.
All right, and Ronald has bid 125 on Tony's piece.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Very nice, very nice. Thank you for that, Ronald. And Mog, yours is still at 100. Okay, for your Baroness. Okay, so. And let's see, what were we? Let's get back to what we were talking about.
I forgot.
The 442nd. I mean, no, not the 442nd. What were we talking about before the break, Tony? You were.
I think we're talking about something like ego.
We're talking
about artist ego and like that journey.
Yeah.
The journey.
Yeah, how that's part of the journey of an artist that you need to let go and not get offended by some of the critique that you may receive on your art.
But it's tough, right? Because
it's
how do you
tough.
not? You take anybody, any human, right? And you tell them like, hey, work on this for days, months, weeks, years, whatever, and then don't be proud of what you come up with, right? Right? Like how do you not have a little bit of ego about it, but then don't take it personally, detach yourself from it, yet do this, and you're like, oh, really? What is it that we ask?
Oh my God, that reminds me. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to make a quick analogy, like, hey, go and work out every day, get your six-pack, and then don't be proud of your six-pack and don't show it off too much and be humble about it.
Well, if you do, somebody else says, well, you got a six-pack, but this brick here looks a little off. I think you got to work on something extra.
Yeah, but it looks like you skipped toe day, leg day.
Yeah. And just to clarify, Ronald Shepard has 125 on Tony Moy's Dr. Doom.
Oh, I thought it was 140.
Oh, thank you.
125. And then, let's see, who is it? The House of Collectibles has yours, Mog, at $100. And we've got 5 minutes left. So if there's...
No, can we extend some, please?
Unfortunately...
Maybe
Unfortunately,
5 more minutes, please.
well, you got 5 minutes left right now. So if
No.
anybody wants to place any bids, now's the time to get them in before the time is up. Okay.
What the heck? How are you doing, Tony?
Tony's
Oh, I don't know.
What you doing? Are you doing the details right now?
He's got
just
the doom.
kinda
He's got
coming
the
with
crack of doom above his head.
Huh?
I was calling the thunder that you got going on there above his head the crack of doom.
Yeah. I got a little bit of. I am going to pull out my secret weapon here.
Yeah. Ronald's asking, what's up with Paint Brothers? That's coming on tomorrow morning.
Yeah, tomorrow morning, Paint Pros is we'll be doing our first stream of the year. So we'll be doing a review of 2022 and what the plans are for 2023. It'll be on YouTube and on my Twitch. So we'll be simul streaming that.
Yeah, so if you want to get more of Tony tomorrow, you'll be able to do that. As he starts to put in the final touches.
But speaking of, Tony said the hours, put hours or something, and you feel the pride. It reminds me of one of my art friends. He's pretty brutal. He says, just because you spent 4 weeks on the piece doesn't mean like it's fantastic. If it's crap, it's still crap. You know?
No, again, there's something to that, but
like he says, he's really like get ticked up by the younger like not younger, the amateurs. He says,
yeah,
and they come in and show their work to him and expect, hey, they just tell him like I spent 40 hours on this or I spent 60 hours on this, right? And he wants to say like that doesn't matter, you know.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your skills, like. But he says it's kind of like he finds it baffling that they want him to factor that in, you know. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, there's a wonderful little comic, right? It's this guy practicing his drawing, and he's a young little cartoon guy, and he shows the artwork to this old master, right? He has a long beard, cartoon beard kind of a thing. You're like, oh, he's the master, this is the student. And he's like, how does it look? He's like, oh, well, you still need more practice. Like, what? I've been practicing. And he shows his desk, right? It pans out and you see his desk, and there's a mountain of paper all over this big, his desk is covered with paper that he's been practicing. And then it pans out even more, and you see the master, and you see a literal mountain of paper behind him. And he's like, you still need to keep practicing, right? Right? So it's like, oh, I think I've been practicing. I've been doing a lot. And then you're like, well, you go to a professional, you go to like, your idols, and you're like, oh, you've been doing this even more.
Yeah. And the thing is, the professionals, the really good ones, of course, like Tony here, the more they master, they end up drawing more and more and more. So FYI, guys.
Yeah. And on that note, I want to thank everybody for coming on and watching the show today. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back next week with another guest. It'll be Rob Maltari, who's with Lone Wolf Publishing. And he also puts out he's got a campaign running now that's called Night Wolf. He also does Snowplow, which Mog is the regular artist on. And again, once again, be sure to look Tony up on his 442nd. Give him the support. He's doing a fantastic work out there for the project and his own artwork there as well. And Nick says he'd like to have each of you both on his Friday night show, the art show. Definitely willing to do that, Nick. You know how to contact us. Definitely, we can schedule that in. And on that note, I want to thank you again, everybody, for coming on the show and supporting us.
Yeah, I'll be finishing this up a little bit more on my Twitch channel, which I'm also streaming on live right now.
That's cheating. That's cheating.
I know, right? But also,
dude,
you're not on it. They only see me. And whoever made the bid on this, I think it was Ron or something like that. Just reach out to me. We'll figure out the details.
Nick, we'll get back to you on that. We're up for it, and we'll talk about like exactly how you want to do that. But definitely for sure, that's something we would love to do with you. All right. Once again, folks, thank you again for coming on the show. You're watching Sketch Up with Mog and Mel on The Experience.
Do you remember what it was like when you were a little kid and you got a letter in the mail? Now imagine that letter was filled with information about your favorite shows, pop culture questions, links to things you're going to want to see later, and even sneak peeks at upcoming programming here on The Experience. That's what the EXP mailing list is. Every week, we send you sneak peeks, information, and all of the relevant links for all of the shows you want to see. Sign up now on our website or scan the QR code that's on your screen right now.